Hello everybody, my name is Zool and welcome to my guide on how to install mods for the Elder Scrolls Oblivion using Mod Organizer. Alright, hi everybody and welcome to my guide. Before we begin, I'm going to need to give you a couple of disclaimers. Disclaimer number 1, Oblivion is a very old game with a very turbulent and chaotic modding community. This means that many links are broken, many guides are out of date, many mods don't exist, many new mods exist. Things are very confusing, not everything works together properly, so if you're used to a smooth modding experience, this is going to be a little bit more complicated. It's not like Skyrim where everything was designed properly and fit together. Modding was a learning experience at the beginning, and even now at the end, things are still changing and going all crazy on us, so I just want to make that perfectly clear. Number 2, Mod Organizer doesn't work very well with Oblivion. It works, but we're going to have to do some tweaking to get OMods to work since there's no natural OMod support. Number 3, OBSE and all of its plugins have to be installed manually while we're using Mod Organizer, because Mod Organizer doesn't work with OBSE properly, and from what I can tell, the creator of Mod Organizer does not have fixing this high on his priorities list. This does mean that we are going to lose a little bit of that security we get when using Mod Organizer, but it should be fine. The last disclaimer is that this guide is something that I've sort of made myself. I'm not following some formal guide that many people have tested. I'm sort of amalgamating many different resources all over the internet to create something brand new. And because of this, there might be a couple hiccups along the way. By the time you see this, I will have tested this setup all the way to the end for a very long time, but there still might be a couple of little errors in my video that I missed, or things that I misspoke, or things like that. If that's the case, check the description of these videos and check the playlist for these videos, because I'll probably have a, episode 2.5 where I sort of address these issues and get them out of the way. If you're using the disc version of Oblivion, I am not really going to be covering that in specific. Some of the stuff we talk about should work, but this is going to be a guide mostly focusing on the Steam version, in particular the Game of the Year edition with all the DLC. So if you don't have that, this guide might not apply perfectly to you, but since that's the version that I have, it's really the only version that I can test and talk about. Now that we've done that, let's get started. Okay, the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you completely uninstall Oblivion, deleting all of the different files and everything like that. If you haven't already done so, please head over to Steam and delete your Oblivion files. So completely uninstall the game, and then give a game a complete fresh reinstall. Then, from here, you may get a little message telling you your graphics have been set up. Go to the options menu and set it to ultra high or whatever graphics you need it to be. By default, I get medium because it doesn't recognize my graphics card, and it sets it to this resolution. So that's something to keep in mind. You may need to change the resolution to make it correct. After that, go ahead and hit the play button. Then start a new game, wait for the first. So once you've done that, we've generated the necessary ini files, all of that kind of stuff, and we can begin modding proper. Now the first thing we're going to need to do, obviously, is to install Mod Organizer. This is the tool we're going to be using. Mod Organizer is just hosted on the Skyrim Nexus for convenience, so there's only one place the mod authors need to update it. Don't really worry about it too much, just head over to the Files section. You're going to scroll down until you find the Mod Organizer, whatever the latest version is. Download the installer version, download this manually, and then drag the executable that you get to your desktop, which is this one right here. I've obviously already gone ahead and done that. What you're going to need to do now is install Mod Organizer, so give that the old double click. Hit next, making sure you read all of this pertinent information. Once you've done that, decide whether or not you'd like to agree to the licensing agreement. Get to this page, scroll down and check off the Handle Nexus Links button. Make sure that everything else sort of matches what I have. Pretty much everything except for Start Menu Shortcut needs to be checked off. Go ahead and hit next. From here, this is a kind of an important step. You can install Mod Organizer anywhere, but if you install it in Program Files 86, you can run into problems with user account controls. Because of this, I like to install it inside my Steam folder for Oblivion. In this case, I have my Steam installed in my D drive, so you can go ahead and install it in Steam, Steamapps, Common, Oblivion. Click OK and then double check to make sure this is all good. I'm actually going to select all of this and copy it since we're going to need to go to that folder later. After that, hit the install button. It'll only take a few moments. I shouldn't even have to cut it. And then once you're done, hit the finish button and it will launch Mod Organizer. From here, I'm going to give you a brief rundown over the user interface, although this is probably not the best video for you to learn how to actually use Mod Organizer. I'll cover that later. If you're not familiar with it, you can also click yes to this tutorial, but I'm going to click no. OBSE can be downloaded at obse.silverlock.org. All you need to do is head over to this page and click on the download button here to download a zip file. From there, you will get an archive which you will need to extract. If you're not familiar with extracting archives, I'll leave a link in the description to kind of show you how to do this. After you've done that, open up this folder and it will look something like this. From here, you are also going to need to open up your Oblivion folder. Again, this should be in Steamapps Common Oblivion. While we're here, by the way, we're going to go ahead and make a shortcut for Mod Organizer because I forgot to do that earlier. Open up the Mod Organizer folder, right click on modorganizer.exe. What you're going to want to do is click the Create Shortcut button. Then you're going to want to hit F2 on your keyboard and rename it to something a little bit more familiar. In my case, I'm going to call it Oblivion-MO to kind of fit with my naming scheme for my other mod organizers that I have. And then I'm just going to go ahead and drag this over here to my desktop. Now that you're in your Oblivion main folder, so not in the Mod Organizer folder and not in the data folder, select all of the files from here. Drag and drop them into the Oblivion folder, and you will have installed all of OBSE. To confirm you've done that, click on the new shortcut that you created to launch Mod Organizer for Oblivion. If everything worked and you installed everything in the correct locations, OBSE should be a launch option in your Mod Organizer. However, you are not going to use it. The reason you are not going to use it is because it is not going to work. You are always going to select Oblivion and hit run if you are trying to launch Mod Organizer for Oblivion. This is because the nature of OBSE is different than the nature of the other script extenders for other Bethesda games, and it is not going to work. Alright, now before we go any further, we're going to need to do some testing. For some users, Mod Organizer isn't going to hook naturally with the game, which can cause some problems. For other users, OBSE is not going to work nicely with the Steam version. We need to make sure that everything's working before we continue on with this guide. In order to do that, we're going to be installing two mods. The first mod we're going to be installing is Alternate Start Arrive by Ship. What we're going to be doing is heading over to the link in the description of this video, going down to the file section of this mod, and downloading with Manager Alternate Start version 166. The reason we're doing this is to test whether our Mod Organizer mods are injecting into the game. When you start a new game, if you are in the jail cell with this mod installed, then Mod Organizer is failing to inject. If you are on a ship, then Mod Organizer is working properly and you can continue on with the rest of the guide. The second mod we're going to install is OBSE Tester. Download this with Manager as well. What you're going to be doing with this mod is once your character is on the ship, wait around and a dialog pop-up will appear giving you some instructions. Make sure not to open any other menus and allow it to process through some things for about a minute, and then it will open up another menu telling you whether or not OBSE is working. If it says OBSE is working fine, then you are good to continue on with this guide. However, many users, myself included, need to do some workarounds. Before we begin with those workarounds, we're going to have to install these mods though. Head over to the Downloads tab on your Mod Organizer. Look for Alternate Start and double click on it. Then hit Manual. It should look good, so click OK. Do the same thing for OBSE Tester. However, for this one, we're going to need to change the data directory. In order to do that, right-click on OBSE Test and Set Data Directory. This will have a plugin and a README, and it will tell you that things look good. Click OK. After that, check off both of these files to make sure that they are working. Now that we have our tester mods installed, you can go ahead and try launching Oblivion by clicking the Run button with Oblivion selected, because trying to launch it with OBSE will not work since we are using the Steam version. Once you've done that, try starting a new game and see what happens. If your computer setup is like mine, then you will run into some problems and you will still appear in the jail cell. In order to fix this, we are going to turn Mod Organizer into workaround mode. In order to do that, hit the Settings button right here. From here, click on the Workarounds tab. Your workarounds will look something like this, although it may have a different Steamapp ID number. What you're going to do is change the load mechanism to Script Extender. What this means is you are no longer going to be launching the game through Mod Organizer. You're not going to click the Run button, you're never going to launch the game through Mod Organizer. You're actually going to launch the game by clicking on the thing in your Steam and running it normally. This way, the Mod Organizer mods will kind of hook onto your script extender and load with them. However, another common issue is that the Steamapp ID on this settings page is wrong. So what we're going to do is make sure our Steamapp ID is correct. To do that, open up Steam, select the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, right click, and click the Create Desktop Shortcut button. From here, you will have a desktop shortcut like I have right here in the top corner of my screen. Right-click on this and select Properties. From here, it will give you a URL that includes an ID number. As you can see, mine is 22330. Copy this number and make sure that it is the Steam app ID that you have selected right here. After that, click OK. Remember, we are not going to be running things through this anymore. Launch your game and proceed with the tests. For some users, everything will have worked and you will have appeared in the jail cell and your OBSE will have loaded properly. However, for many other users, one of the two problems will still be occurring. In order to fix this, we need to change the loader for OBSE. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you remember when we installed OBSE, we had a bunch of different things, including the loader that people familiar with Skyrim or Fallout would know is what you normally use to launch the game. However, if you try to launch the game using the OBSE loader, it will give you a message telling you that you need to run it through the Steam version of Oblivion. You can't launch the thing using the loader. The loader, however, doesn't always work for everybody with the Steam version, and it will fail to inject the mod. This is a little bit more technical, so I'm just going to kind of ignore that and just tell you that if it's not working, you need to follow these steps. Head over to the Nexus mods page for Oblivion Script Extender. That's right, we're not going to the main site right now, we're going to the Oblivion Script Extender Nexus page. From here, you will see several different files. The main file is the current stable version that we already have. However, for many of us, that's not working. So what we're going to be doing is trying out two of the different loaders. We'll go to this optional file here. This is supposed to be a temporary fix for folks who've had OBSE and Steam issues. So what we're going to do is download this old version of OBSE. We're going to bring this to our desktop, extract it using an archiving tool like 7-zip or WinRAR. Then we're going to open it up. Remember that this is OBSE 017B. Go inside this folder. We are not going to copy everything. We are going to look specifically for OBSE_loader. We are going to take just this file, cut, and paste this into our main Oblivion file. This is going to give us an older version of the loader. After you've done that and we've gone through all of these workarounds, try to launch the game through Steam. Once again, I can't stress this enough, make sure it is in workaround mode and then launch the game by clicking the play button here and then clicking play. Don't worry if you don't see any data files in here because that is not going to be an issue. Once you launch the game, click the new game button and start a new game. And then it's going to enter this cutscene. Just click escape to bypass it. You'll notice that in the background here is not a jail cell, but it is in fact a ship. This means that my mods are being injected properly. Name your character something random, and then click done. Don't worry about making them look like that, and don't worry about how I got the faces to look like that. We're going to cover that later. After that, you're going to get this message box for OBSE test. We're going to click done and wait a few moments. As we can see, OBSE has been installed correctly and it is the correct version, which means we can exit out of the game because everything is working properly. We can now continue on with this guide. Now that we've installed Mod Organizer and OBSE, we're actually going to do something a little bit strange. We're going to install the Oblivion Mod Manager. That's right, we're installing a second mod manager, and we're going to be doing this because later on in the series, we're going to need to be able to install OMods in some way, and the only way to do that is to install Oblivion Mod Manager. So to do this, head over to the File section and download the full installer manually. Don't install it with Manager, just download the full installer manually. After you've done that, you will have an executable on your desktop. I have it right here and I've already gone ahead and extracted it. Inside this, there will be an executable. You're going to use this executable to install Oblivion Mod Manager just like we previously installed Mod Organizer. Go ahead and hit next, agree to the licensing agreement or disagree, and then turn off this video because you're not going to be able to proceed. It should direct you to the correct folder, which mine does. If not, you want it to be in the same location that you installed Mod Organizer, so you want it to be in your Oblivion folder. After you've done that, hit next, and then hit next. Do not do any of this, although you do want to associate OMod file type with the Oblivion Mod Manager. You don't need a desktop icon, you don't need a quick launch icon, you don't need any of that. Hit next and install. After that, uncheck these two options since we're not going to be launching Oblivion Mod Manager in the traditional way. We're going to be launching it through our Mod Organizer. To do this, we're going to need to go ahead and create a new executable. To do this, click right here and hit the edit button. We're going to be creating a new file. You can do this by selecting OBSE and then just changing the title. In my case, I'm going to call it Oblivion Mod Manager. You're also going to need to change the directory of the binary. So click on this button here and you are actually going to be looking for the Oblivion Mod Manager executable file. This should be found not in your Mod Organiser file, but actually out here in the main Oblivion folder. It should be called oblivionmodmanager.exe. Select that and hit the open button. We can then clear out anything that's in the start in argument since that needs to be left blank, and after that just go ahead and hit close. Now that we've done that, you can go to the drop down menu here, select Oblivion Mod Manager and hit the run button. This will then launch the Oblivion Mod Manager. Now we're not going to need to do anything with this now, but later on it's going to be important because we're going to be using that to extract the OMods into something that Mod Organiser can then use to install as a mod. Now that we've gotten some of the tools under our belt, we're going to go ahead and install the Unofficial Patches. Head over to the links in the description for both the Unofficial Oblivion patch, the Unofficial Shivering Isles patch, and the Unofficial Oblivion DLC patch. From here, head over to the Files section of these mods and download the main files with Manager. Just like this and this. Go to the Shivering Isles page, go to the Files section, download with Manager, and then continue with my download. Again, for the Oblivion DLC patches, click and then click. It might ask you to log into Nexus, and if it does, go ahead and enter your Nexus login information. Once your Nexus login information has been dealt with and everything starts going fine, you can head over to the Downloads tab and see the progress of the installation of these patches. They're going to download automatically into your Mod Organiser. I'm going to cut the video ahead to when they're done, and then I'll explain what you need to do to install these mods. Alright, once all the patches have been installed, now you can go ahead and double click on first the Unofficial Oblivion patch file, and we're going to install our first mod with Mod Organiser. How I recommend installing every mod is clicking the manual button and then visually checking to see if everything is correct. You can read that tutorial if you'd like to kind of understand what that is, but basically what you want to see is the correct file structure. In this case, you want a data folder on the top, and then you want anything else, meshes, textures, ESPs to all be underneath said data folder. Mod Organiser usually does a good job at telling you if things look good as well, so this is kind of a good thing to keep an eye on. One thing I've noticed is an OBSE plugin, and as we can see there is actually some DLLs there. Because of the previously mentioned OBSE issues that Mod Organiser has, we're going to need to go ahead and deal with these a little bit individually later, but for now, let's just install them. Click the OK button and it will begin to extract the file. Once you've done that, do the same thing for the Shivering Isles patch. There's no OBSE plugins here, so we can just go ahead and hit OK, and then finally we can go ahead and do the same thing for the DLC patches. Checking once again to make sure that there's nothing there, nope, just a bunch of ESPs, and we'll click OK. Now that we've done that, let's head over to the Plugins tab and see what happens when we activate these mods. As you can see, files are ending up over here in the Plugins tab. And that's basically because once you check one of these off, it actually adds it into the files that are going to eventually be injected into your game. We need to deal with those OBSE plugins, however, so what we're going to do is double click on the Unofficial Oblivion patch in the main pane. From here, we're going to head over to the file tree. As you can see here, there is an OBSE plugins folder. I just usually do this to double check visually before I actually go into the folder and remove things. Since we want to manually move it, what we're going to do is head over to our Oblivion folder. This is Steamapps Common Oblivion. From here, we're going to open up Mod Organiser, and then we're going to go to the Mods folder. From the Mods folder, we're going to go to the Unofficial Oblivion patch folder. We're going to select OBSE, and we're going to cut. From here, we're going to remove back to the Steamapps Common Oblivion folder, go into the Data folder, and we're going to paste that here. This may ask you to replace things, that's fine. Now, when you open up your OBSE folder, there will be a Plugins folder, and inside that Plugins folder will be some DLLs. In the next episode, we'll probably cover something like any tweaks, stability, and performance, and then we'll eventually get to the UI, although I'm not quite sure the order that these videos are going to come out with. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope this series works out and is successful. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Zool, and I hope that you have an excellent day.